Let's check it out. Ancient preparations. Play. Predict. Countdown 2. Summon a Clockling. Alright. I have no idea what any of those words mean. Although Clockling, I don't know what it is, but Clockling feels like a word we're just gonna like meme a lot over the next like period of time. It's just like one of those funny words. Oh, here's a Clockling. That's one thing we know what it means. Predict is probably gonna be Scry from Magic. That's a good guess. Alright, do we have the Twitter video? Here, let's pull it up. Alright, here we go. New keyword, predict. Pick a card from among 3 in your deck, shuffle the deck, and put that card on top. It's a shuffle the deck button. Wow. That's really interesting. Predict is discover. Yes. Yeah, something like that. It's also a shuffle the deck function, which is a very interesting mechanical property that will actually be able to do some things. So, yeah, it'll show you 3 random cards in your deck. It's not the top 3. And it's just your deck shuffles, and you've got this next to draw. Which is, yes, it's very similar to Scry. Very interesting. Khahiri the Returned, a 6-mana 4/4. When I'm summoned to create a copy of me in your deck. When you see me in a prediction... Wow, what? When you see me in a prediction, grant all allied copies of me everywhere +2/+2. That's pretty funny. Wow. Okay, a Spying Chronomancer is just a 2-mana 2/3 predict, so it'll show you 3 and you'll be able to put that on top. That's not bad if you have synergy for that. That can definitely make sense. When I'm summoned, grant me +1/+1 if you've predicted this game. Potential Badger Bearer. It's a 3-mana 4/4 if you play it on curve after Chronomancer. I think that's not going to be great. Chronomancer I could see, but Khahiri the Student I don't like as much unless there's more specific prediction synergy. Ancient Preparations is super interesting here. Okay, so there's a lot going on, and these are of course support cards for cards, you know, we haven't necessarily seen yet. Then we've got Preservarium. It's a 2-mana landmark. When I'm summoned, draw 1. Countdown 2, draw 1. So these are like little countdown landmarks. Preservarium is kind of like a 2-mana draw 2. Right? You can play it and it draws 1, and then 2 turns later it draws 1. And the countdown you can trigger early because there's some cards that trigger that accelerate the countdown, right? That's not bad. Literally Shard of Greed. Yeah, it's like Shard of Greed, exactly. Ancient Preparations, now that we've kind of seen how Predict and Countdown are going to play into this, it's Predict on play for 1 mana, and then it just summons a 2/2 later. God, I don't know how to evaluate that. These Predict cards feel like they could be actually pretty good. When I'm summoned, grant 3 random allies in your deck +3/+3. I love that. I love that. They're giving prediction synergy in the form of Xenotype Researcher. Because this is kind of like a neat way to have a lot of predictive qualities. So there's a lot of cards that we can do with this. I like this bundle because I can already think of some like weird and interesting deck building concepts. So some of you guys are saying we can use Predict with Allegiance. If we use a prediction and then put a card on top of our deck, and then we get the Allegiance guaranteed. This is probably not gonna really work for a lot of reasons. Most Allegiance cards need to be curved out, and so it's really hard to like predict into the Allegiance. That's something that you're gonna be doing on like turn 6, which kind of defeats the purpose. But there are some similar things we can do. There's some Allegiances that you might be able to just play later, which is okay. But we can do things like, for example, when you toss a lot of cards and you end up with a bunch of champs on the bottom, when you then shuffle your deck, you're increasing your draws for champions by quite a bit in some decks, which can help some tailored strategies like All-in Maokai. When we have this idea of Xenotype Researchers, and prediction in general that allows you to like, so Xenotype can buff random allies in deck. We can use this with some all-in decks that run spell heavy concepts and a few allies. That's just a cool thing. So you can make sure that you're getting the buffs guaranteed off of stuff that pulls allies into your hand, like Entreat. That's also really cool. Yeah, we'll see if we can actually build decks around that. We'll see if there's enough support. But I love those ideas. And then the last card here we haven't gone over is Promising Future. 4 mana slow, grant an allied landmark. My countdown completion effect activates twice. I mean, getting 2 restored sun discs doesn't really do much. Like, doubling this effect doesn't really do almost anything. You'll maybe draw double the Ascendants, but this should already kind of win you the game. Doubling this effect is just a draw 1. And this is just a 2/2. So Promising Future is a sort of meta commentary on the state of this card. It's called Promising Future. And what this card says to us is that there's probably going to be more of these kinds of landmarks where Promising Future will actually make sense as a 4 mana card. Like, this card is sending us all a message about the promising future of Shurima and these card reveals. There's going to be more of these, and there will be there's a card in this pool that is the reason Promising Future cost 4 mana. There's something in this Shurima pool, probably maybe later down in one of the later streamer ones, but there's a reason this card costs 4 mana, and I'm really interested. That's quite curious. Okay. So yeah, this is effectively the reveal today. It's a pretty small reveal. It's not like, you know, a super crazy champ or anything like that. For the most part, these are interesting cards. Like, I love Predict, and these aren't necessarily easy to solve, right? Like, it's gonna be people are gonna deck build with them. People are gonna see exactly like where they go, and I'm really curious what the reveal is tomorrow. Who are the support cards for? I think Predict will have to do this will have to do with like Zilean or Echo, right? The sort of like time area of things. These are support cards for Zilean, right? Exactly, which is very interesting because people have been wondering for a while, you know, Zilean and Echo are time synergy cards, whatever the hell that's going to mean. This gives us a little bit of an insight into what they could do. And I like it. I like Predict as a mechanic. You know, there's a lot of degenerate ways like time manipulation could work or translate in a card game. Predict is pretty cool. We can use this in a lot of different decks. Really, I just like to see mechanics that we can kind of like deck build for in more interesting ways. And I see that here. I like that. So now we get into the evaluation of how good these cards are. What do you guys think? I want to talk a little bit and actually like maybe like arrive to emote ratings, try to figure out where the competitive viability is. Hard to say. These ones are hard to say. These ones are actually quite hard to say. So Ancient Preparations, and we've got, I mean, the 3 mana 3/4 triggers countdown and everything, right? No, it only advances your bird sun disc. Right. I wasn't sure about that. So as far as we know, you have to just manually wait 2 turns for all of these. Zilean is a meme in League. The 2-drop in aggro seems good. What, Chronomage? Chronomage won't be bad. I see a lot of potential in the Preservarium. I think what is effectively a 2 mana draw 2 is pretty neat. You have to wait 2 turns, which isn't that bad. If you play it on like turn 4, it'll be a draw 1 immediately and then a draw 2nd card by turn 6. That's not bad. That feels very like on balance. Like, I don't expect it to be nuts, but that does feel pretty viable. Like something that you'll definitely want to run in some kinds of decks. Khahiri the Returned kind of has to be a meme. I don't think there's any way to make this into a deck concept where this is a win condition. And Promising Future is something we can't evaluate without looking at the next card. Khahiri the Student, as mentioned, even if we have a Prediction Synergy deck, this one's probably going to be a little bit on the weaker side unless there's some more synergy from this that we haven't seen, but I expect the real cards here, the landmarks are going to be good. The Chronomancer looks like it's going to be pretty good. We don't know what the prediction payoff is going to be. We don't know how Zilean is going to fit into this, but Chronomancer looks probably like the core of this strategy, and I do expect, whereas stuff like Khahiri and Khahiri to get these are the same character, to get cut, Aspiring Chronomancer will have to see play in that deck for sure. Xenotype Researchers is a lot more interesting. That's one that we just can't predict. I'm so sorry. Xenotype Researchers, I love. This is a really fun card. I hope that we'll be able to make something with this. You'd have to find a situation where you're gonna like cheat these stats out a little bit earlier, or use them on units where the stats are actually going to matter. So Xenotype Researchers is going to be a little bit more of a mystery. So overall, Ancient Preparations, play, predict, countdown 2, summon a Clockling. It's kind of like it's like a 1-mana 2/2 that comes out later for the ability to get a free predict. I don't like Ancient Preparations that much out of these, because the point of a 1-mana 2/2, the ability to play it early matters so much. Now, I think there's going to be more countdown synergy. I think there's going to be more predict synergy. So Ancient Preparations might be good given those. But from what we can see right now, you're not really going to want to use this in a deck in and of itself. This one kind of has to be a question mark because it's too dependent on future synergy. Chronomancer will kind of have to be at least decent. I'll give this one a solid Vlad emote. Chronomancer, again, this is another support pack. We have to just guess how these synergies are going to be. But Chronomancer is probably the most viable out of these immediately, because whatever its synergies are, a 2-mana 2/3 trigger prediction, and we know some of the synergies will be kind of prediction payoff. 2-mana 2/3 trigger prediction is just going to be efficient enough to make sense in decks. Like, it just kind of can't be bad. Xenotype Researchers, this is a pure Heimerdinger emote. It's really funny, it's really experimental. I hope that there's a deck that can use this, but it's a really wacky effect that is going to need a very specific build to make sense. Khahiri the Student and Khahiri the Returned are, I think, a little too weak here. They're a little overcosted in terms of stats and conditional stats. Preservarium looks sweet, as mentioned. It's effectively a 2-mana draw 2. One of those comes in a little late, but for 2 mana, like when we compare it to Salvage, and Salvage is a little bit below viability right now, but the 2 mana discount for, you know, being a better card and one of the draws coming in a little bit later, this card's pretty solid. This card, along with Chronomancer, are kind of the two we can definitely kind of like guarantee we'll see either at the very least solid experimentation, whereas something like Ancient Preparations and Promising Future, these two are going to be a little more contingent on synergy cards that we haven't seen yet. And speaking of Promising Future, there will be a reason this card costs 4 mana. We haven't seen what landmark this card has to be balanced around, but for whatever reason this costs 4 mana, there's some landmark out there. There's some landmark out there that they haven't shown us yet that has a really powerful countdown completion double effect that warrants this card costing 4 mana, which is going to be pretty interesting. Okay. Whew. Prediction can set up an allegiance without you needing a full region. Yeah, but that's going to be pretty niche. I don't think that's really going to make much sense, because allegiance cards you really need to play on curve. You can't really force yourself not to be able to draw reliably. Like, you can't predict into something next turn. And if you're using like Chronomancer into Avros and Outriders on turn 6, that's like too late to make sense. Like Chronomancer into Kinko on 6 is too late to make sense. The problem with that is like basically all of the Allegiance cards are slow ones that you kind of need to play on curve. The exception is Mountains Crier. Exactly. Yes. That's completely correct. One of my Mountains Crier is kind of the only Allegiance card that you don't really need to play on turn 4 for it to be value. Countdowns repeat. They stay on board and happen again. All right. Did I misread this? Does that happen? I thought countdowns killed it. Doesn't the landmark die? Hang on. Countdown. Round start, I count down to 1. At 0, destroy me and activate the countdown effect. Yeah, it looks like countdown is just a temporary thing, my friends. We tried.